In 1947, British India was divided into two independent nations, India and Pakistan, marking the end of nearly 2 centuries of British colonial rule. The partition was driven by the demand for separate nations based on religious identity, with the Indian National Congress led by figures like Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi advocating for a united India, while the Muslim League, under Muhammad Ali Jinnah, pushed for a separate Muslim-majority Pakistan. The British, weakened by World War II and facing mounting nationalist pressures, passed the Indian Independence Act in July 1947, setting August 15, 1947, as the date for independence. The partition drew boundaries splitting the provinces of Punjab and Bengal, with Pakistan comprising West Pakistan, modern Pakistan, and East Pakistan, modern Bangladesh, separated by 1/1600 miles of Indian territory. The Radcliffe Line, hastily drawn by British lawyer Cyril Radcliffe, demarcated the borders, often cutting through communities and farmlands with little regard for ethnic or cultural ties. The process triggered one of the largest human migrations in history, with over 10 million people displaced as Hindus and Sikhs moved to India and Muslims to Pakistan. Communal violence erupted, particularly in Punjab and Bengal, with estimates of 1 million deaths due to riots, massacres, and starvation. The princely states, including Jammu and Kashmir, were given the choice to join India or Pakistan, leading to immediate conflict when Kashmir's Hindu ruler delayed his decision, sparking the First Indo-Pak War. The partition left deep scars, shaping India-Pakistan hostility over Kashmir and fostering enduring religious and political tensions. The First Indo-Pak War began in October 1947, shortly after the partition of British India, when Pakistani-backed tribal militias from the northwest frontier province invaded the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. The state's Hindu ruler, Maharaja Hari Singh, had not yet decided whether to accede to India or Pakistan, despite its Muslim-majority population. The invasion aimed to seize control of Kashmir, prompting Hari Singh to sign the Instrument of Accession on October 26, 1947, joining India in exchange for military aid. Indian troops were airlifted to Srinagar, halting the advance of the tribal forces, who were supported by Pakistani regulars. Fighting spread across Kashmir, with key battles in Srinagar, Baramulla, and the Uri sector. Pakistan officially entered the war in 1948, deploying its army to support the militias. India gained control of the Kashmir Valley, Jammu, and Ladakh, while Pakistan held areas now known as Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. The war saw brutal fighting, with an estimated 1,500 Indian and 2,000 Pakistani tribal casualties. By late 1948, both sides were exhausted, and India referred the issue to the United Nations. A UN-brokered ceasefire took effect on January 1, 1949, establishing the Line of Control, LOC, dividing Kashmir roughly 2/3 under Indian control and 1/3 under Pakistani control. The UN resolution called for a plebiscite to determine Kashmir's future, contingent on Pakistan withdrawing its forces, but this condition was never met, and the plebiscite never occurred. The war cemented Kashmir as the core of India-Pakistan hostility, setting the stage for future conflicts. Following the First Indo-Pak War, the 1950s and 1960s saw India and Pakistan locked in a period of cold hostilities, marked by mutual distrust, diplomatic tensions, and periodic skirmishes, primarily over the unresolved Kashmir issue. The Line of Control, LOC, established in 1949, became a frequent flashpoint, with both sides accusing each other of ceasefire violations involving small arms fire and artillery exchanges. These clashes, often in remote mountainous areas, caused limited casualties but kept tensions high. India focused on consolidating its control over Jammu and Kashmir, integrating it into its union, while Pakistan sought international support for a plebiscite, as outlined in UN resolutions, which India increasingly viewed as irrelevant. Pakistan's growing alliance with the United States through the 1954 CEDAW and CENTO Pacts contrasted with India's non-aligned stance and closer ties with the Soviet Union, adding a Cold War dimension to their rivalry. The 1962 Sino-Indian Isla War, where India suffered a defeat, emboldened Pakistan, which strengthened ties with China through a 1963 border agreement ceding part of Pakistan-controlled Kashmir. This period saw no major war, but minor border incidents such as those in the Rann of Kutch in 1965 escalated tensions, foreshadowing the Second Indo-Pak War. Diplomatic efforts, like talks in the 1950s under UN mediation, failed to resolve Kashmir's status, as India insisted on bilateral solutions while Pakistan demanded international intervention. The era solidified the enduring enmity, with both nations building up their militaries and entrenching their positions on Kashmir. The Second Indo-Pak War erupted in August 1965, driven by Pakistan's ambition to seize Jammu and Kashmir, believing India was weakened after its 1962 defeat to China. Pakistan launched Operation Gibraltar, infiltrating thousands of disguised soldiers and militants into Indian-administered Kashmir to incite a local uprising against Indian rule. The plan failed as the local population did not support the infiltrators, and Indian forces quickly detected and engaged them. Pakistan then escalated with Operation Grand Slam, a large-scale armored assault in the Cham sector aimed at capturing key areas like Akhnur. India responded with a full-scale counteroffensive, opening fronts across the international border, including major tank battles in Punjab's Sialkot and Lahore sectors, among the largest since World War II. Indian troops advanced toward Lahore but did not capture it. The war, fought across Kashmir, Punjab, and Rajasthan, saw intense air and ground combat, with India's larger forces gaining an edge. After 3 weeks of fighting, both sides faced heavy losses, approximately 4,000 Indian and 6,000 Pakistani troops killed, and diminishing supplies. International pressure, led by the Soviet Union and the United States, led to a UN-mandated ceasefire on September 23, 1965. The Tashkent Agreement, signed in January 1966 under Soviet mediation, restored pre-war boundaries, with both sides withdrawing forces. The war ended in a stalemate, failing to alter the Kashmir status quo, but it deepened mutual hostility and showcased Pakistan's reliance on asymmetric tactics and India's conventional military strength. The 1971 Indo-Pak War, culminating in the liberation of Bangladesh, stemmed from political and ethnic tensions in East Pakistan, where the Bengali population faced marginalization by West Pakistan's ruling elite. After the 1970 elections, the Awami League, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, won a majority but was denied power, triggering protests and a brutal military crackdown by Pakistan in March 1971, killing thousands and displacing 10 million refugees into India. India, under Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, supported the Bengali resistance, training and arming the Mukti Bahini guerrillas to wage an insurgency against Pakistani forces. As the refugee crisis strained India's resources, tensions escalated, with border skirmishes. On December 3, 1971, Pakistan launched preemptive airstrikes on Indian airfields, prompting India to declare war. Indian forces, better prepared and coordinated, executed a swift multi-front campaign, advancing into East Pakistan while holding defensive lines in the west. In East Pakistan, Indian troops and Mukti Bahini fighters overwhelmed Pakistani defenses, capturing key cities like Dhaka. On December 16, 1971, Pakistan's eastern commander surrendered with 93,000 troops taken prisoner, marking one of the largest military capitulations since World War II. The 13-day war ended with Bangladesh's emergence as an independent nation. Casualties were significant, around 3,500 Indian and 11,000 Pakistani troops killed, while civilian deaths in East Pakistan ranged from 300,000 to 3 million, per varying estimates. The Simla Agreement, signed in July 1972, redefined the Kashmir ceasefire line as the line of control and committed both nations to bilateral dispute resolution. The war humiliated Pakistan, strengthened India's regional dominance, and deepened bilateral animosity, though Kashmir remained unresolved. The 1980s and 1990s marked a dangerous escalation in India-Pakistan hostilities as both nations developed nuclear capabilities, raising the stakes of their rivalry, particularly over Kashmir. India conducted its first nuclear test in 1974, prompting Pakistan to accelerate its covert nuclear program, achieving weapons capability by the late 1980s. This nuclearization coincided with heightened tensions driven by Pakistan's support for a growing insurgency in Indian-administered Kashmir, fueled by militant groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, which launched attacks on Indian security forces and civilians. The insurgency, backed by Pakistan's inter-services intelligence, began in the late 1980s, killing thousands and displacing many, as India deployed massive troops to quell the violence. The 1984 Siachen Glacier conflict, sparked by India's preemptive occupation of the disputed high-altitude region, saw both sides establish permanent posts in the world's highest battlefield, with frequent skirmishes costing hundreds of lives, mostly due to harsh conditions. Tensions flared again in 1990, when India's crackdown on Kashmiri militants led to cross-border firing along the line of control. Both nations conducted tit-for-tat nuclear tests in May 1998, India's 5 tests followed by Pakistan's 6, confirming their status as nuclear powers and drawing global sanctions. The 1999 Kargil War became the first major conflict in this nuclear era, as Pakistani troops and militants infiltrated Indian-administered Kargil, occupying strategic heights. India's Operation Vijay, involving heavy artillery and airstrikes, regained the territory after weeks of fighting. With around 500 Indian and 1,000 Pakistani casualties, Pakistan withdrew under U.S. pressure. But the war underscored the risk of nuclear escalation, as both sides exchanged veiled threats. The period entrenched Kashmir as a nuclear flashpoint, with confidence-building measures like missile test, notifications emerging to manage risks, though distrust persisted. The Kargil War, fought between May and July 1999, was a high-altitude conflict in the Kargil district of Indian-administered Jammu and Kashmir, sparked by Pakistan's infiltration of soldiers and militants across the line of control. Disguised as insurgents, Pakistani forces occupied strategic peaks in the rugged snow-covered terrain, aiming to cut off India's National Highway 1, disrupt supply lines to Ladakh, and reignite the Kashmir dispute. India discovered the intrusion in early May and launched Operation Vijay, mobilizing 200,000 troops, artillery, and air support to recapture the positions. Intense battles unfolded at extreme altitudes, with Indian forces facing entrenched positions in areas like Tiger Hill and Tololing. Pakistan initially denied involvement, claiming the fighters were independent militants, but evidence of regular army presence mounted. India's sustained offensive, backed by precise artillery and airstrikes, gradually dislodged the intruders, though at a high cost, with around 500 Indian soldiers killed and over 1,000 wounded. Pakistani losses were estimated at 700 to 1,000, including soldiers and militants. International pressure, particularly from the United States, compelled Pakistan to withdraw its forces by late July, restoring the pre-conflict line of control. The war, fought under the shadow of both nations' 1998 nuclear tests, raised fears of escalation, with India refraining from crossing the LOC to avoid broader conflict. The conflict exposed Pakistan's strategy of using proxies and highlighted India's resolve to defend its territory. Its strained bilateral ties derailed peace talks initiated by the 1999 Lahore Declaration and solidified Kashmir as a nuclear flashpoint, with no territorial or political gains for Pakistan. The 2000s saw India-Pakistan relations remain volatile after the Kargil War, with mistrust and sporadic violence defining the decade, fueled by Kashmir and cross-border terrorism. The 2001 attack on India's parliament in New Delhi, carried out by Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed militants, killed 14 people and pushed both nations to the brink of war. India launched Operation Parakram, mobilizing over 500,000 troops along the border, while Pakistan countered with its own deployments, leading to a tense 10-month standoff with over 1,800 casualties from skirmishes and mine-laying, though no full-scale war erupted. Diplomacy, backed by U.S. pressure, de-escalated the crisis. But relations soured further. Ceasefire violations along the line of control persisted, with artillery and small arms exchanges killing soldiers and civilians on both sides. The 2003 ceasefire agreement briefly reduced hostilities, enabling some confidence-building measures like cross-Losi bus services and trade. However, Pakistan's continued support for militant groups, including Lashkar-e-Taiba, kept tensions high. The 2008 Mumbai attacks, where 10 Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists killed 166 people over 3 days, froze bilateral dialogue. India demanded Pakistan prosecute the perpetrators, but limited action, such as the trial of Hafiz Saeed, which yielded no conviction, deepened distrust. India's evidence of Pakistan's inter-services intelligence involvement further strained ties. Sporadic back-channel talks, including efforts under Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf, explored a Kashmir framework but collapsed due to domestic opposition and Musharraf's 2008 ouster. The decade saw no major war, but entrenched the cycle of terror attacks, military posturing, and diplomatic stalemate, with both nations leveraging their nuclear arsenals to deter escalation while failing to address the Kashmir core. The period from 2016 to 2019 saw a sharp escalation in India-Pakistan tensions, driven by high-profile terror attacks, military retaliation, and a significant shift in the Kashmir status quo. In September 2016, Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed militants attacked an Indian army base in Uri, Jammu and Kashmir, killing 19 soldiers. India responded with surgical strikes on October 29, 2016, claiming its special forces crossed the line of control to destroy militant launch pads in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. Pakistan denied the strike's impact, but the operation marked a shift in India's policy toward proactive retaliation, escalating cross-border firing that killed dozens of soldiers and civilians. Tensions spiked again on February 14, 2019, when a Jaish-e-Mohammed suicide bomber attacked a convoy in Pulwama, Jammu and Kashmir, killing 40 Indian paramilitary personnel. India retaliated on February 26 with airstrikes on an alleged Jaish-e-Mohammed camp in Balakot, Pakistan, the first Indian air incursion into Pakistani territory since 1971. Pakistan claimed the strikes hit an empty forest, while India reported significant militant casualties. The next day, Pakistan shot down an Indian MiG-21 in a dogfight, capturing the pilot, Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman, who was released 2 days later amid international mediation. The crisis de-escalated, but on August 5, 2019, India revoked Article 370, stripping Jammu and Kashmir of its special autonomy and reorganizing it into 2 union territories under direct federal control. Pakistan condemned the move as illegal, downgraded diplomatic ties, suspended trade, and sought international support, with little success. The period saw heavy militarization along the line of control, with 3,200 ceasefire violations reported in 2019 alone, per Indian data, and entrenched the pattern of terror attacks, swift reprisals, and diplomatic freeze, with Kashmir's altered status adding a new layer of contention. Between 2020 and 2025, India-Pakistan relations remained tense, characterized by intermittent border clashes, a fragile ceasefire, and a deepening diplomatic freeze, with Kashmir and terrorism at the core of the conflict. In 2020, the line of control saw heavy exchanges of gunfire and shelling, with India reporting over 5,100 ceasefire violations, resulting in 22 deaths, including 11 civilians, while Pakistan claimed 2,729 violations by India, killing 21 Pakistani civilians and injuring 206. A renewed ceasefire agreement in February 2021, announced via hotline talks, aimed for strict observance of peace, reducing incidents temporarily, though violations persisted, with both sides using artillery and small arms. India's 2019 revocation of Jammu and Kashmir's autonomy under Article 370 continued to strain ties, with Pakistan suspending trade, downgrading diplomatic relations, and rejecting India's stance that Kashmir is an internal matter. Pakistan, pushed for UN intervention, while India demanded action against Pakistan-based terror groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. The April 2025 Pahalgam attack, where 27 people, mostly Hindu tourists, were killed in Indian-administered Kashmir, marked a severe escalation. The resistance front, linked to Lashkar-e-Taiba, initially claimed responsibility, prompting India to accuse Pakistan of sponsorship. India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty, closed the Attari-Wagah border, expelled Pakistani diplomats, and banned Pakistani nationals' visas, while Pakistan denied involvement, suspended the Simla Agreement, cut trade, and closed its airspace to Indian aircraft. Skirmishes along the LOC intensified from April 24th, culminating in India's Operation Sindoor on May 7, 2025, involving missile strikes on alleged militant targets in Pakistan, which India claimed killed militants, while Pakistan reported 31 civilian deaths and downed Indian jets. Pakistan's retaliatory drone and missile attempts were intercepted by India. Reports of India manipulating water flows, releasing excess from the Uri Dam and restricting the Chenab River, sparked panic in Pakistan, with Islamabad calling it an act of war. Both nations, with around 160 nuclear warheads each, faced global calls for restraint from the UN, Iran, and China, but U.S. mediation was limited, with President Trump urging bilateral resolution. Pakistan's economic crisis and reliance on China via the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor contrasted with India's growing U.S. ties, complicating de-escalation. The Balochistan insurgency, with Pakistan accusing India of supporting groups like the Baloch Liberation Army after a March 2025 train attack, added another friction point, though India denied involvement. Social media posts on X highlighted polarized sentiments, with Indian users decrying Pakistan's terror links and Pakistani users emphasizing Kashmir's plight. But no diplomatic breakthroughs occurred by May 2025, leaving relations at a critical low with risks of further escalation.